So, you're ready to start a podcast? Well, you're in the right place. Whether you're overwhelmed by all the details or really just not sure where to start, I'm going to break it down for you. In the next 4.5 minutes, I'll walk you through the exact steps you need to set up your podcast and get it live fast. Oh, and stick around to the end for a bonus tip on how to grow your audience almost on autopilot. Before you flip on the mic, let's talk about planning. The first step to a successful podcast is knowing your audience. Who are you talking to? Are they entrepreneurs, parents, true crime fanatics? Be as specific as you can here, because the more you understand your audience, the easier it is to plan the content that will resonate with them. Next, let's think about format. Are you going solo? Co-hosting with a friend maybe? Interviewing guests? Each option has its pros and its cons, but just make sure that the format matches your strength and the type of content you want to deliver to your audience. Now, let's talk about naming your podcast. You have to keep it simple, memorable, and easy to spell. I like to avoid confusing words or inside jokes that only make sense to you and maybe a couple close friends. And yes, do a quick search both in Google and somewhere like Spotify to make sure no one else is using the same name as you have in mind. Once you've nailed the name, it's time to create some eye-catching cover art. I like our tool called Dynamo. Check it out at dynamo.castos.com. It's entirely free. You don't need any design skills to come up with something professional and great looking, but just make sure the title text is really large because folks will be looking at this on their phone where it's a pretty small size. Now let's talk about gear. You don't have to break the bank to start a podcast. A great beginner mic like this, the Samsung Q2U, is affordable and sounds fantastic and is really forgiving. If you're feeling really fancy, you can upgrade to something like the Shure MV7, which is a nice step up. But even if you don't have a mic, no problem. You can start with your smartphone. The built-in mic on most smartphones is surprisingly good, and you can upgrade later as your podcast grows and you get traction. Once you've got your technical setup, it's time to create some content. I like launching with at least 3 episodes because it gives your audience more kind of meat to chew on right away. I like to start with a simple introduction episode. We call this episode 0, where you just tell your audience kind of who you are, what the show is about, why you're starting their podcast, and what they can hope to expect in future episodes. And for the rest, stick to the format that you decided on earlier and keep it engaging. Whether you're storytelling or interviewing, make sure you deliver an enormous amount of value in every episode. Oftentimes, editing seems really intimidating to new podcasters, but it doesn't have to be. Use a tool like Descript or even Riverside, which are really great for beginners, and both offer the ability to edit your podcast content just like you would a Word document. Remove awkward pauses and misspeakings, add a little bit of music, clean up the audio, and hey, if editing isn't your first thing, you can outsource it to someone like Castos Productions. Either way, saves time, keep your workflow smooth, and keep you publishing every week. Once you've polished that episode up, it's time to host them and get it out live, and that's where something like Castos comes in. Castos is a podcast hosting and distribution platforms with integrations with platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the major podcasting directories, and you can get your show live and out there in front of your audience in literally just a couple of minutes. Now that your show is live, it's time to promote. The best thing here is sharing clips of your episode on social media like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts, and video is key here. Consider recording video for all of your episodes, and a little 30 to 60 second teaser can really grab attention of folks on social and drive them to your show to subscribe and listen to every episode. Don't forget to ask your audience to share the podcast with others, because the fact is word of mouth is still hands down the best way to grow your audience. So, ready to start that podcast? Head over to castos.com and sign up for a free 14-day trial. With Castos, you can focus on creating content, and we handle all of the distribution, hosting, and analytics, so you don't have to. Oh, and that bonus tip I mentioned at the beginning? Consistency. Once you launch, stick with a regular release schedule. Whether it's weekly or bi-weekly, it doesn't really matter as long as your audience knows what to expect from you. So publish consistently, build that trust with your audience, and they'll keep coming back for more. Check out this video to see how you can build a process around your podcasting workflow and hit publish consistently every time.